Hey guys, Retired at 40. Thanks for joining me again on part of the PROMASTER van build. Today, we're going to put a subfloor in to this van. Because in our last video, we put these seats in right here, some back seats in the PROMASTER. So in order to cover up the seat tracks, I want to make a flush mount floor, and we're going to put some insulation for something that gives us a little bit of R rating, and also something that'll help with the road noise. So the first thing I'm going to do is get our seats out that we put in the last video. And then all of these little tie downs that are kind of strategically located throughout the van, all those need to come out. So to get these tie downs out, you just need a T40 Torx bit. It looks like that. Some people call them a star bit. And then anything that's going to get in the way of putting a new floor in. So I think that most of these panels, I don't think these panels normally, I think they're an option in the PROMASTER. I think usually they look like that with no cover, but it is nice that these panels are here, but I think some of them will come into play, so we need to pull them out. And then while I'm at it, since the next thing I'm going to do after I get the floor in is I'm going to put the bed in. So the bed is actually going to go below this panel. I'm going to take this out as well, just so I can see what's behind it, so I can see what I need to attach a cleat to for the bed. Alright, next I'm going to take all these plugs out. If you have a pry bar like this, you can get in them. Sometimes they'll just pop right out. Sometimes you kind of have to work with them a little bit. So I've got everything hollowed out. I've got the side panels off. I've got the other little trim pieces off. Anything that's going to get in the way of trying to put a floor in. Now the next big challenge is going to be cutting plywood to fit in here. And in the PROMASTER there is a ton of little nooks and crannies that you need to cut around to make everything fit. So most of the time this would take a better part of a day. You'd have to put it in, trim a little bit after you traced, take it back out, cut it, put it back in to see if it fits, trim a little bit more, take it back out, cut it, and just keep doing that process over and over again. But I have a pretty good shortcut to kind of get around that. So my PROMASTER came with this. It's a 3/8 inch rubber mat, and I'm actually going to leave it down instead of doing some different kind of floor, because it's really durable, it's waterproof, it's easy to sweep out, but in this circumstance it's an excellent template. So if you look at all of our really tough corners to cut out, again like we were looking at before, it kind of does all this for you. And if you wanted to keep the tie downs in the same spot, all those holes are cut out as well. The wheel wells are all cut out. It cuts off right where you want your subfloor to cut off. So really the only tricky part is where my seat brackets were yesterday. You can see the little hump in the floor right here. I would just have to cut that out in the plywood and figure out where that's at. So if you're curious what the Mopar number of this mat is, there it is right there. That's what a whole day's worth of trial and error would look like. So I really want this to fit about as tight as you can possibly get. So I just need to trim off a little bit, but we're almost dead on the first try. So that took me a few times, but it's a lot better than trying to do that just from scratch. The next thing I need to do is try and cut out the area for the tracks for the seat, and that's going to be a total guessing game. I've got a pretty good idea where these tracks are at now, so now I'm just going to drill a few peekaboo holes just along the whole area, because even if I'm off just a little bit, it'll give me an idea of where I'm at as far as what I need to cut out. Alright, it's pretty good. I can see exactly where everything's at now, including where the latches go down. I have a pretty good idea of where all that stuff is now, so I can cut that all out because that's not just a straight line. Just a couple more cuts and then test fit it one more time. One more little trim and it looks like we'll have it made. That was way more work than I thought it was going to be. Even with the template, it was a lot of work, a lot of trimming, and a lot of trial and error. But I got this first piece in, which should be the most difficult by far. So I'm going to go do the second piece now. It sure is a lot easier when things fit the first time. So unfortunately, in the 118-inch wheelbase model, you're left with just a small little piece back here. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that piece. So we've got the plywood subfloor all cut out and fitted, which is by far the hardest part. So now it's time to take that back out because we know it fits, and we're gonna put our insulating floor in, which is this stuff right here. And this is 100 square feet, and it was about $50. And then I've got some foil tape to fill the gaps. At 100 square feet for $50, it's only about 50 cents a square foot. It has an R value as well as a sound deadening quality to it. And it's flexible, so it can bend and fit into little shapes and nooks and crannies if it needs to. The really nice thing about this stuff is that you can actually tuck it kind of like carpet, so you can really seal up stuff. It's really going to help with insulating qualities. It's really going to help with sound. I'll put a link down in the description for this stuff. So this right here is why I love this stuff. It will bend, and you can actually push it in, and when you get some pressure up onto it, you're sealing that whole thing. Whereas if you use some other stuff, you'd have little gaps and stuff where air can get in or sound can get in. And I'm not sure if Dynamat and some of the similar products that people use, I'm not sure. I know that it will help with sound, but I'm not sure if it has any kind of insulating quality. And I know this has both, and this is also about 4 times cheaper. I'm just going to take a couple small pieces of our foil tape, and we can kind of just place it strategically to hold things in place so they don't move around. And another thing that I really like about this stuff is water does not affect it. It's fine if it gets wet. So I'm just taking some extra pieces and filling in little gaps, nooks, crannies, and then you just use your foil tape and fill that in. It gives you a nice clean look. It gives you a nice clean, solid, soundproof area and cold and heat proof area. And this is also why you want to overlap, because I'm just focusing on the floor today, but when we do these walls, then you have something that's overlapping those walls and will fill in that dead space as well. And then until I figure out how I'm going to finish this out, I'm actually going to wrap this with tape on the bottom. If water or dirt gets on there, it will actually shed that off. This foil tape sticks to paint really, really well. Alright, and then for our slider door, I'm actually going to take it and wrap it around the bottom. So the same thing, it will shed dirt, it'll shed water. So there's the finished product, nice and clean and smooth. Let's go to the last part on this side. So what I want to do, while I left space extra up here, is so I can take this and just tuck it underneath the factory floor mats, and then we can carpet this or do something else, and then put a trim piece across here. Gives you a nice clean installation, and it gives you an area that can be sealed off with a piece of trim along here and really give a clean look, a finished look. I'm going to tape my seam first, and that way it'll hold everything in place and it won't move around after I start trying to fit things together. I went ahead and finished this out, skipped ahead a bit. I figured you didn't need to see you saw the other side, so you don't need to see this side again. But left extra up here again, so when we tuck on insulation back here and then put our panel back on, it'll suck that all in nice and tight. I've also decided I think I'm just going to do one layer of this, because with this all being buttoned up as tight as it is, and then 3/4 inch plywood on top of it, and then insulating the walls, I think it'll be plenty, and it'll actually line up really nice to give us the flush flush mount with our brackets. I also just got a notification that my van windows have been shipped, so I'm really looking forward to that. We're taking this on our maiden voyage here pretty soon. That'll also give me a chance to see if this insulation and the wall insulation is going to suffice for what we need it for, and if not, it'll give us an idea of where we need to button it up a little bit better. So what I need to do now is put the plywood back in. I'm going to sand it down, and I'm going to clean up the edges with a router just on the sides that show, so in the back here, and then on the door side where you can see it. Eventually I'll probably put some kind of polyurethane or some kind of coating on top of it just to kind of keep it clean, and then I'll put my rubber floor mat back in, cut it out for the brackets, and we'll be good to go. Alright, I got the last piece nice and sanded up. And with the insulation in, everything fits in really tight and really nice now. I took a router and edged this so you have a nice clean seam at the end. And then I also routered this edge. So let's go grab the mat and get that installed and get it cut for the brackets. So you'll notice that I'm not gluing anything down. I kind of want this to be totally modular, just like everything else. I want to be able to remove the floor. I want to be able to remove the mat. I want to be able to get to anything beneath it if there was ever a water issue or if I need to replace one of the panels. But now that everything's in, everything fits way better just because of that insulation. Everything is real tight, and I've got a feeling it's gonna work really well. So now all I need to do is just cut out my access for where the back seat's gonna go, where it clips into. So I'm just gonna basically have 4 holes right here, and then that'll sit down flush. The rest of it will be completely flat. You can't even feel where the track was at. So I test fitted the chair to make sure that I only cut out as much as I needed to, because the rest of this is all flush mount now. So now the only thing left is to put the chair back in. So as promised, I'm going to give you a running total of a van build so far. But first I want to remind you to take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to do lots more van build videos. We also do some frugal living, some off-grid, some cooking, some camping, some food preservation. And you get to join me and my family on our journey on our retirement at the age of 40. Also give me a thumbs up, it helps get this video out to people who want to see it. And feel free to leave me a comment. I always love hearing from the community if you're doing a van build yourself or if you have any suggestions for me on mine. So from the last video, our total was $18,888. And this video, we had $191 in materials. That's with the sanded plywood. You can save a little bit of money if you don't want to use the sanded, but I would highly recommend going with the sanded. And that includes the insulation and the foil tape also. There's a link down in the description below for the stuff that I used. So that brings our total to $19,079. Make sure you stay tuned for parts 5 and 6. We're gonna put some windows in here, and we're also gonna put a bed in here. In the meantime, this is Retired at 40, reminding you to live life simple. We'll catch you next week.